So, ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is kind of a throwback to what I call the teen dream era that I grew up in of the mid 1970s. Now, I don't normally do podcasts like this because I really don't know how my listeners would react to it or even respond to it, but this is a weird request because this has nothing to do with my podcast channel, people asking this. I went to Framingham Megafest a number of years ago and I met the great performer and actor Rex Smith. He was one of the teen heartthrobs of back in the day. He's known for being several roles. He had a great singing career. He also was the original Daredevil on television, a great number of people. And when I talked to him, Rex was very, very nice, very, very forthcoming with the people. And he asked me straight out, and I mentioned I was an entertainment reporter, columnist and stuff like that. And he said, at least with me, everybody knows who I am. I said, what do you mean? Well, he said, do you know who Robby Benson is? I said, of course. Well, yeah, he said he was so hot when I was younger. I mean, people would ask for him on the talk shows like Tonight Show and different things over me or Leif Garrett or the Cassidy brothers or Parker Stevenson and, Andy Gibb. He said, Robby Benson was hot. And I said, what happened to him? And he said, well, if you read his IMDb or look in his Wikipedia, he's probably one of the most diverse people that you could ever think about. So we're going to talk about a little bit, actually it's a tribute to Rex Smith, again, a very nice gentleman. I talk about Robby Benson and maybe the parallels. He was sort of like the poor man's John Travolta, and we're going to get a little bit of this in the podcast. Now, if you ever read the Tiger Beat and the other teen magazines back in the day, Robby Benson would show up so frequently, it was almost like he was the original version of Ralph Macchio, with a little bit of, John Travolta's looks, a little bit of a teen heartthrob, circa like Donny Osmond style Bobby Sherman. Now, he wasn't born Robby Benson, he was born Robin David Segal, great last name, January 26, 1956, in all places, Dallas, Texas. Now, he became a great voice actor and director after his teen dream phase was done, and he's best known, of course, of his great work as Beast in the animated The Beauty and the Beast movie, and also his numerous sequels and spin-offs. And he's also a well-known director, musician, producer, writer, composer, mostly for his work on actually Friends, of all things. Now, Benson was the son of Frida Ann Nee Benson, which was her what do you call it, stage name. Now, his family actually is Jewish background. He was raised in New York City, and he took his mother's maiden name as his stage name when he was 10. He had a very early career. Now, he made his uncredited film debut in the Audrey Hepburn classic Wait Until Dark as, of all things, the boy tossing the ball. And he also was on Broadway in The Rothschilds. Now, like many young actors, he started off in soap operas, including Search for Tomorrow. Now, he became known for what he called the old coming-of-age movies in the 1970s, including Jory, 1973's Jeremy, and what he was best known for with his frequent partner, Glynis O'Connor, in Ode to Billy Joe, a 1976 kind of telefilm which was based on the Ode to Billy Joe song by Bobby Gentry. That movie appears on TCM and other myriad channels, and it talks about a coming of age of a young man in the South who is questioning his sexuality, which eventually leads to him taking a bad decision on a Tallahassee bridge. Now, this is when it really went bizarre for Robby. Now, in '75, he appeared in two nondescript movies, Death Be Not Proud and Lucky Lady. Now, rumors were going around that he was one of the people that was being considered for the role of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, a role which eventually went to Mark Hamill. But Benson had something that some directors and producers and co-stars saw him as like $1 million possibility of being again the poor man's John Travolta. And he was a very talented guy. But it seemed to a lot of people of our generation, Benson was being pushed down our throats for maybe a talent he didn't have. Sure, in certain movies he could do well, but he didn't have John Travolta's acting chops, and he didn't have the Cassidy brothers or Packer Stevenson acting chops like the Hardy brothers, but he was so nice looking that he kept on trying in different roles. Now, get this. In 1977, he did a basketball movie called One on One, which actually holds up quite well in the modern times, talking about how university students are manipulated for basketball. And he co-wrote the One on One. He was also in the popular TV movie The Death of Richie. And of course, the big movie for him later on was Ice Castle, starring the figure skater Lynn Holly Johnson. Now, Benson learned how to skate for the movie, and he had numerous skating scenes, including ice hockey. And he was a very adaptable actor. But it just seems like every possibility of a big movie break for him would either fall apart or not key in. He even did movies in Canada, because he did the Canadian movie Tribute in 1980, which actually led to Jack Lemmon getting an Oscar nomination for Best Actor, and was considered one of the best Canadian movies of the early 80s. Now, he continued to get great roles, including the Billy Mills movie, which celebrated the 10,000 meter gold medalist, the underdog champion, in the film called Running Brave. But it just seemed like he was giving a lot of swings at the plate to become a big star, but nothing would really put him over the top. And he's a very talented guy. We really don't know why he wasn't a bigger star, but it just seemed there was just too many people out there, and maybe because of Andy Gibb or Scott Baio or Jimmy Baio or Ralph Macchio, Robby Benson was sort of like never taken seriously, even though he was a very talented guy. He could have been just as big as John Travolta and some of the young actors of his generation. Even kind of, he was a preamble to Tom Cruise. He looked a little bit like Donny Osmond, looked a little bit like, if John Travolta had a younger brother. Very handsome guy, very personable, but as an actor, he was grating for a lot of people. He was a kind of a running joke in Canada, because everybody said, well, everybody's in love with Robby Benson, but what has he done? He had like nine chances to be a superstar, but it always seemed that something was holding him back, and what held him back is because basically there was nothing there that was charismatic or is any different than most of the teen heartthrobs out there. Again, a very talented actor, very talented creator. It just seems, that he would never hit it big, but his later career, he's made his own path. He's professor at the New York University Tisch School of Arts and the University of Utah, University of Southern California, and he's done great work at Indiana University. And he's overcome physical illness as well. Like, he suffered from a heart murmur when he was younger, and he had 4 open heart surgeries to complete it. But he's it just, when you remember the actors you grew up with, or the actresses. Annette O'Toole was like that. Again, Glynis O'Connor, the poor lady Sissy Spacek. He never really could bring it. It's almost like when he tried to make Mark Spitz into a Hollywood star. But Robby Benson, for the young girls out there, and some young gay men, he was their cutie patootie. He was the guy that was on the wall, and basically that's what they were there for. But nobody say, well, Robby was great in this movie and great with that movie. Half the time he's just playing himself in every role. Ode to Billy Joe had a little bit of the John Travolta style, but again, it was just basically, there was nothing there. Now, what Robby Benson has really brought to the table is the fact is that teen heartthrobs are now not really what you call, there's not so much pressure on them. You could be a young actor growing up, be on CW or Bravo or whatever channel. You can grow in your trade. But back then, I think what happened with Robby, whoever's running his career, put too much pressure on him, put too much stead in the fact that, you got to be like John Travolta, or you got to be like Andy Gibb, or, you got to be a singer, whatever. Like, I really think, and Donny Osmond too was soaking up a lot of the limelight too. Back then, either you were top line heartthrobs, and the ones that were second rate were never remembered. And it goes back to what Rick Smith said. Rick Smith was an extremely multiple talented person, and he could never go over to the next level. And Rick Smith was much more popular than Robby Benson ever was, because Rick Smith at the time, I mean, he's going places, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. So I'll leave you with this. And if you're a Robby Benson fan, like a lot of people, they saw a lot of talent in Robby Benson. You wished him well, but like I said, you had to compare him to John Travolta and the other young heartthrobs, and he couldn't keep up. And it's too bad, because I heard he's a nice gentleman, but maybe he didn't want the big career. Maybe it was never meant for him to be that person. And he's done great voice work as a director. Again, he's done a lot of different stuff through the years, and he's his personality has gotten him through. So if you're a Robby Benson fan, be congratulated, because he was part of your past. But in TV and movie history, it's a head scratcher. Again, who's trying to promote him? Why didn't he become big? And why am I still talking about this guy 40 some years later, after I first saw him again in Ode to Billy Joe? And I was wondering, what's going on here? Are he plugging this guy? Is it because of John Travolta? Is it because of Donny Osmond? He was acting with his hair. Like Dad said, Robby Benson acted with his hair. He was never taken seriously, because maybe he could have been too nice looking. Who knows? So on this beautiful day, we wish you well. And cold weather is around the Woodstock area today, but hopefully spring is coming. And if you're a Robby Benson fan, congratulations, because you're part of history. His history and the history of all the people who loved the heartthrobs. But again, and one person said he was going to be a replacement for Davy Jones of the Monkees. That was one of the worst lines I've ever seen in any teen magazine. He was just himself. Anyway, maybe there's a parallel universe where Robby Benson is more popular than John Travolta. Could be. Just look him in the face and say, okay, if you didn't know that was not John Travolta, it would be John Travolta's brother, right? That's the way it goes. Have a good one. Bye.